What's up, guys? Shout out couple.com. Thank you to Ketone IQ for sponsoring this video. I'm fresh off 70.3 Maine, where I came in 7th place, my best finish ever. Technically crossed the line in 8th, but Matt Sharp was disqualified for having his zipper all the way down on his tri-suit across the line. Controversial thing, but that's the rule, silly as it is. But my previous best result was actually 8th, but crossing the line in 9th because someone ahead of me was disqualified for failing to serve a drafting penalty. Either way you slice it, this is my best result on paper. Didn't have a great swim, did not have a great bike, but I had my best run in a 70.3 that I've ever had. Basic race recap. The race started at 6 a.m. Earliest 70.3 start that I've ever done. I feel like I got a actually decent amount of sleep the night before. Downriver swim. Did not think it was going to be faster than Oregon, but it was faster than Oregon. I came out of the water in just over 17 minutes. I was out where I was out, just got on some feet. Once I was sort of situated with where I was at, I kind of just started conserving energy because I knew I could probably make up actually a lot of time in transition because it was a huge, a very long uphill run to the bikes. There was one mishap. I actually got caught in a buoy, like literally just like smacked into it. The current was sort of pushing me into the buoy, and then I got caught on the string connecting the buoy to whatever is anchoring it to the bottom of the river. So that was not great. And then was pretty gassed actually coming up the first hill to transition, and then started turning it up going into the second part of the hill, the last bit of transition. And I did T1 in 2:52, which I think was the third fastest transition. So solid. I maybe could have made up a bit more time. Anyway, onto the bike. I biked 216 and I averaged about 280 watts, 293 normalized. This course had over 3,000 feet of elevation gain, and I rode it horribly, like really bad. During the race, obviously coming off of Oregon last week, which was possibly my worst mental performance ever, I was just thinking about what I need to do in training, thinking about, I need to take a break from triathlon. I suck at this. I know swimming is just going to take a while for me to get even remotely okay at it, but I am just terrible at biking. I did end up losing a lot of time. I lost 14 minutes to Trevor Foley, who biked the fastest. And he was 5 minutes faster than the next fastest guy, but still, I feel like, I shouldn't be losing 8-9 minutes to other guys, but I did. And I think it was mainly, I know I can push more power than that on a flat course. If you give me just a 2-hour time trial, I'll push probably around 310 watts. I could probably normalize 320, something like that. I would imagine I could do something near those numbers based on what I've been doing in training. But going up, it wasn't up the hills. On flats and up hills, my power was good, but just transitioning from, cresting a hill and then getting my speed back up on a downhill, I was horrible at it. And it's, a cadence variation thing, and maybe I'm not sure. I was really bad at maintaining speed over these rollers, and the entire course was rolling. So yeah, I just biked really poorly technically as far as maintaining speed over these hills, and power was just really bad, which those were definitely interlinked. So fitness needs work, but also technical skills over hilly courses like that need work, because that should be an opportunity for me, a poor swimmer, to gain a lot of time on the good swimmers, because there's not going to be as big of a drafting pack up the road. During that bike, I was frustrated, just thinking I don't want to race again at all this year. I suck at this. I just need to lay low and train for a year before I do another triathlon, because I hate being in this position. But especially coming off of Oregon, I was there more so to prove something to myself than to get a result. And so I was like, whatever, this bike is going poorly, just going to get off the bike and do whatever I was able to do. Got out onto the run. I wore a watch, which I often don't, but I wanted splits and time there to just hold myself accountable the entire time. Got into a pretty good rhythm. I was still in, 14th, 15th. I was pretty far back. Got through 8 miles in under 5:30 pace, closer to like 5:25, and I was feeling okay. And I was like, okay, I've got nothing to lose. So I split my watch and I picked it up. I ran a 5:15 for the next mile. Then finally we're coming up on 9 miles, and I could see just a line of people in sight. And there were 2 turnarounds, so I knew what place I was in. I could see, 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th, all the way up ahead. And I kind of just got to work. And at 10 miles, there's a huge hill, pretty steep hill. I knew that would hurt a lot of other people more than me. So I just kind of gave it whatever was left in the tank for the last 2-3 miles. passed into 8th place, just around 12 miles, and then Devin Volk, who was in 7th, was just a little bit too far ahead. I think if there was another half mile, or if I had biked 30 seconds faster, then maybe it would have been a different story, but that was just too much ground to make up. By that point, I knew I was in 8th, and then crossed the line, and turns out because of Matt Sharp's disqualification, I was credited with 7th place. So either way, the place, the result, not super important. I was excited that I cashed. I mean, it's nice to win money at something that you're trying to make your job. So that was a positive. But mainly, I guess I played the race to my strengths, and I came away with my best result ever and fastest run in the race. I'm actually not too thrilled about that. You know, it's now the 3rd time I've had the fastest run. I don't want to have to do that to get a good result. But for now, that's how I have to play it. So, and it's a really good sign of the fitness coming off of the Achilles injury all winter, because I really haven't pushed it on the run. So it's nice that that was there. I posed a question on Instagram asking what specifically people would be interested in outside of the basic recap. There were 4 main things that you guys all asked about. Number 1 was recovery and activation and training in the week between. Obviously, I'm coming off of 170.3 7 days prior. So here's my training peaks. Raced on Sunday. Monday back in Seattle, I just ran for 50 minutes, and I had hoped to swim, but I was packing all day, packing my bike. I was pretty tired, honestly. So that 50-minute run is all I ended up getting in. Tuesday, traveled back to the East Coast, back here to West Hartford, to my parents' house. It was a long day of travel. Had to get up at 3:30 a.m. Seattle time, and then didn't get here till 6 p.m. East Coast time, but I just went for an easy 30-minute jog. The next day, got to the pool for a swim, 4K. The main set was 20 times 75 on 110. I was holding 56s, which that's faster than I usually go. So I guess I felt pretty fresh. And then I went for almost 2-hour bike, 224 watts average, 239 normalized, just a solid endurance ride. The day after that was just an easy hour run, and then another swim, a little bit of intensity, just sort of building up 10 by 50, 10 by 75, 10 by 100. The 50s were more of a warm up. The 75s were sort of VO2 range, hitting like 51 to 53 for those 75s. So that's a 108 to 111 pace. And then the 100s backed off to 114s, sort of thresholdy range. Friday was some openers, 8 by 2 minutes at 70.3-ish range on the bike, and then 3 by 230 and a couple strides on the run off the bike. That was everything I did that week, because Saturday I had hoped to swim and probably ride, but I drove up to Maine that day and hit way more traffic than I was anticipating. Ideally, don't want to take the day off before a race completely off, but it's fine. You know, just getting there was the most important thing. And then the race. So including the race, I trained for 12 hours. Training-wise, that's what I did. It wasn't that much, but I got some sessions in. I just got the body moving. A little bit of intensity in each of the 3 disciplines, but for the most part, it's just doing something and letting the body come back. The second thing people were asking about was nutrition. And this is possibly the biggest change between the 2 races. This is a good time to talk about my favorite product in the world, Ketone IQ. I get a lot of comments, a lot of hate in the comments, a lot of people in my DMs saying that this is snake oil, does nothing. When I started taking this in January, I knew it was doing something. If you go and look at the research, and this is one thing I get in the comments, is research suggests that it does absolutely nothing. This is not true. If you go and look at the research, it would seem that ketones are not going to increase your 60-minute power or actually spare muscle glycogen, a lot of the things which theoretically people thought it might do. Research suggests that it actually doesn't work like that. However, I started taking it, I was feeling good, especially on really long days, long bike rides with intensity. Did some more research on it, and it turns out that the main benefit of ketones, that at least I think this is why it has been so effective for me, is that ketones increase post-exercise muscle glycogen synthesis by almost 50%. So that explains a lot for me, is that ketones are more of a recovery hack than they are a performance enhancer during exercise. Replenishing muscle glycogen is one of the barriers to actually recovering, and that's, you need to replenish your muscle glycogen before you're ready to go hard again. Ketones will speed that up a significant amount, and that is scientifically backed. If you are interested in enhancing your recovery, use my code ARICLOW for a 20% discount. I do not get commission from this. It's just a discount. But I have to think that after a 4-hour event where you're pretty much depleted at the end, Ketone IQ helped me recover in the week in between. Because once I did start training again in leading up, I I felt pretty good. Better than I have after a 70.3 before. As far as actual race nutrition goes, Friday before the Sunday race, my friend Sean Mazer calls me. He says, hey, I watched your YouTube video and I just want to say the feeling that you described at mile 4 of the run, that I don't know what I'm doing here, I feel like crap, I don't want to be here. It sounds like you just didn't have enough carbs. After that call on Friday, I was like, okay, if I can make one change, it will be just having more carbs, because I probably didn't have enough. As I was driving up to Maine, I listened to the Pro Tri News, Mark Matthews guest podcast, or whatever they're calling it, with Tim Podlegar, who's the head nutritionist at Bora Hansgrohe. And he said that he would suggest the day before an Ironman race, you should have 12 grams per kilogram of carbohydrate. For me, that would be 900 grams. That's over 2 pounds of carbohydrate. My first thought was, whoa, I have never even been close to that. So I immediately pulled over at the gas station, got a bunch of body armors, got a couple donuts, got a big thing of fruit snacks, and for the rest of the day, I was pounding carbs. And I totaled it all up. That day, I had 755 grams of carbs. So not quite the 12 grams per kilo, but I got 10 grams per kilo the day before the race. And then the morning of the race, I also had more than I usually do, 220 grams of carbs, starting about 2 hours and 15 minutes before the race. In addition to, I guess I had 400 milligrams of caffeine, which I just looked it up after with, I had a Red Bull, a 16-ounce Red Bull with 136 milligrams of caffeine, and a Starbucks Nitro, which apparently has 235 milligrams of caffeine. That's crazy, but I definitely felt ready to go. On the bike, I had 280 grams of carbs of maple syrup plus a Morton gel on course, which is 25 grams, so that's 305. And then I had 4 Morton gels on the run course. 1 immediately starting the run, and then 3 more out on course, 2 of which were calf, and then 1 calf on the bike. So 300 milligrams of caffeine on the bike and run, in addition to 400 milligrams of caffeine the morning of. So I had 700 milligrams of caffeine, which I don't know, it worked, because I have never felt good on a 70.3 run until last Sunday. It obviously was hard and my legs were tired because I had swam and biked, but I had never felt like I could push. And on Sunday, I actually felt like I was able to push. And at 8 miles, I picked it up. Having more carbs than I have ever had the day before, the morning of, and during the race seemed to be a winning formula. I had a little bit of stomach discomfort, but not enough to slow me down at all. So the other thing a lot of people were asking about was my bike power. Again, it was 280 watts, 293 normalized. I have been pushing that for like a year and a half or a year, I guess. I actually feel like I have gotten worse at biking. I know that's not true because I had a more decent one in Oregon last week, so it seems like things are coming together. I just am not putting them all together on the same day. The other thing is I missed the podium by 3 minutes. That's the closest I've ever been to a podium, and I feel like 3 minutes on the bike, you know, if I swim the same and I run the same, 3 minutes on the bike for how poorly I have been biking, that's such low-hanging fruit. That's definitely going to be an area of emphasis over the next several months. Is just trying to get the bike to at least a decent level. I would say the thing that probably 75% of people asked, like most of the questions, were just how did I physically and mentally bounce back from what felt like a career worst performance in Oregon the week before. So after Oregon, I didn't want to race Maine. The thought of being in that place again was honestly scary. I was like, I just don't want to go through that. But part of the reason I put both of these races on the schedule was to go through what it feels like to do 2 races back to back, regardless of how they both end up going. So I knew that I had to do it simply because doing hard things, not even doing hard things, like a lot of hard things are things that I want to do. I want to go do big training sessions. Doing things that you just really don't want to do and that the prospect of doing them scares you, like a second 70.3 after just a horrible one, was something that I knew I had to do. Putting myself through it and forcing my mind to find a way just to get through it ultimately would have some sort of positive outcome. Not doing the race was not an option, even though I really didn't want to. I knew I would just have to stick it out. I don't know, I realized it didn't matter. The only thing that matters is just me trying again and doing my best, and that it can't get much worse than it was the week before. So that was at least consolation. And then once I talked to Sean Mazer on Friday and decided I was going to try just taking more carbs, and then listen to that podcast on Saturday and decided to try something radically new the night before a race, which you never should do, but I did. I at least felt like, okay, I'm going into this race and I'm trying something new. I can see what happens and tweak from there. I mean, I guess in a nutshell, I got knocked down, and from there is only one thing to do. You know, you get up and try again. Anyway, I think the most important thing here is that I totaled everything up, and from day before the race to the end of the race, I had 1,380 grams of carbs, which is over 3 pounds of carbs. In addition to going in there and mentally knowing that I wasn't doing it to go get a result, I was just there to prove something to myself. Also, the physical aspect of just stuffing myself with as much simple fiber-free sugar as I was able to get down seemed to lead to me actually feeling good for once. So I'm definitely going to be pushing the limits there of how much my stomach can handle. And then obviously ketones post-exercise for that extra recovery. Despite feeling during the bike like I never wanted to race a triathlon again, I really want to race more triathlons now. So upcoming race schedule now, I have a 50K trail race on September 2nd, and then on September 24th, I think I'm going to do 70.3 Augusta, and then big one, early November, I am going to do Ironman Florida with my boys Josh and Evan. I've thought about doing a full IM for a long time, and this one just seems like a good opportunity because I'll be able to do it with friends. Okay, it's not really about getting a result. It's just about exposing myself to things that are scary. And I don't feel like I'll be ready for an Ironman, but whatever. I just want to go out there and see how my mind reacts when I put myself in that situation. I would like to do Indian Wells after that, but that becomes more of a financial issue, just flying to races and Airbnbs and car rentals. I'll probably do that if I win money again at Augusta, but otherwise probably will end the season after Florida. That's it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for following along. Thank you guys for all the support after the last video. And I do want to point out that there were a lot of comments about how I should get a coach, which maybe that's true. A lot of comments with how shit my diet is, which that's not true anymore. Actually, the last several months, I've really cleaned it up. Only one person said the right thing. One person said, I should just have more carbs. Congrats to you. You were right. That was huge. And yeah, I'm excited to get back to training and trying to get better at biking. That is the play for now, is just get a little bit better at biking. All right, see you folks.